Okay. So now we're going to be taking a look at a slightly different way of signing and telling stories. You may have seen some of this. I know some teachers will teach ABC stories early on as kind of a novelty. I think that they're really cool. They're a bit beyond ASL 1 and 2. I think the real key, you start to get the idea of them and start to appreciate them more when you're in 3 and 4. And the idea is that you're going to tell the whole story using set hand shapes or set parameter of hand shapes. If you've improvised in music, you know that there are certain notes you can play and certain notes you can't play, depending on the chord progression. So it follows the same idea that you're going to set that you can only use, say, this hand shape. And everything you tell has got to use this hand shape or this hand shape. The next level up is the ABC stories or the number stories, a sequence story, where you use hand shapes in a certain order. Usually A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 in that order. So the first time would be an A. Right? So A, B, C, D, E. I just did in that. They're really a challenge. For native speakers, they're tough. They're especially difficult for non-native speakers because you have to think not about the initial letter of the word or the sign, but you're thinking about the hand shape. And there's a moment where it starts to click that, oh, I'm not thinking of a sign. I'm not thinking of the vocabulary. I'm not thinking of the hand shape. I'm thinking of this shape. How do I manipulate this shape? It's a bit advanced. So sometimes I think we start it a little too early because even ASL3, you've barely graduated from having to think about letters before you spell something. So they're fun to play with, and they're really cool to appreciate and to watch. Just if it takes a second to click in, don't freak out. You're not falling behind. These are just for your appreciation to watch as stories. We're not going to do much with them. I've got a couple other ones that I can put into this slideshow that I won't show right now. We're not going to watch any of the videos, obviously, because they gum up the works, as they always do. This is the guy doing the introduction is a man named Sam Supala. He and his brother are very famous and influential within the deaf storytelling community or within the ASL community. Ted Supala was one of my teachers in college, and he and his wife, Alyssa Newport, both have been working together studying cognition in the brain. He looks at it from the linguistic point of view, and she looks at it from the cognitive science or the brain science point of view. And they do a lot of comparisons between hearing brains and deaf brains and language acquisition and that. It's really fascinating stuff. If you're interested in that kind of thing, there's definitely a wormhole or a rabbit hole you can follow along. His brother Sam was more known for his ASL storytelling. I saw him perform in the 90s, early 90s, like 1991. And he told a whole evening of all classifier stories. Like the entire 30-minute story had no vocab. It was all just classifiers. And I remember I was dating an interpreter at the time who had to voice for him. And she just looked at the script and was like, how am I going to... He's not signing words. I'm like, just narrate. Just imagine your audio describing for a blind person of what they're seeing. Man, it was pretty cool. But, so the whole storytelling thing was just fascinating. So that's Sam Supala. They're pretty well known. They're multi-generational deaf family, so their sign language is very strong and very clear. So they were definitely a reference point in terms of what is correct ASL, especially in the age of so much signed English. So he introduces another gentleman called Ben Bahan. Ben Bahan teaches ASL literature and deaf culture at Gallaudet University. And he is probably the most famous ASL storyteller. You'll see him pop up in all sorts of different things, giving keynote addresses and stuff. He's fascinating. So he tells an ABC story. Then Sam does another introduction. And then Frida Norman. Frida Norman was an actress with the National Theatre of the Deaf for a long time, and she appears in many of the textbooks. You'll see her more in the next unit in 16 when we're talking about using classifiers to describe shapes like tubes and bottles and vases and things like that. She's going to do a single hand-shaped story. And as I say, there's a lot that goes into these stories. You have to specifically choose the right sentence structure to make the signs that you want to use work. But again, watch these, enjoy them. If you want to try to imitate some of it, that's great. Just know that this is a skill that's in the future for you. Right? And really, that's all that this unit is. It's just watching the storytelling. The next thing, I was going to lump two things in together. I'm now pushing it into 1311, and that will be a sort of checklist on talking about the house you live in or the features that it has. So just watch these videos and enjoy this storytelling technique. It's very entertaining. It's also a good thing to bring home if anybody decides to make fun of you for, where'd you get ASL? What's language about this? I've seen that happen many times and faced that conversation to show them that, wow, there's a real literature in here, kind of along the same lines of a limerick or any kind of Shakespeare sonnet. Same kind of crafting goes into being able to start. Literally, if you think about it, the rhyme scheme of using single hand or ABCs is very much along the lines of any kind of song lyrics. Think about the level of rhyme that occurs in rap lyrics. If someone can be impressed by that, they can be impressed by the sign language. Maybe, if they have a brain cell or two. Anyway, all right, so that's 1310.